Hey there, athletes. Coach John Ferry here again from Team Wilpers. Very excited, as always, to welcome you to our Week 7 athlete briefing for both our winter run and half marathon challenge here in 2024. We're going to start with a quick Week 6 review here. So our winter run crew continuing to work and push those AC intervals. Actually, in that second workout of the week, starting to back off a little bit. Backing off all the way to VO2 max, we're starting to really get distance test ready there. Our half marathoners continue, or kind of including that midweek, kind of longer endurance effort there, continuing to really train a lot for our endurance. Half marathoners, it was your turn for hill repeats this week, working on leg strength and certainly hill running proficiency, which hopefully we're going to translate into your race. My reminder, as always, to make sure to go on, keep checking those boxes, chasing that 100% completion percentage. That is still the best way to put yourself in a situation to be successful here. Just an FYI, I'm going to do a little bit in the upcoming week of a roll call for the NYC half and Nashville half marathon weekend. Those are two races coming up, NYC half here towards the kind of middle end of March, Nashville towards the end of April, which we've kind of designated. We know we're going to have Team Wilpers representation there. I know that there are a lot of people planning to be in Nashville for that race weekend. And certainly we hope there'll be people in the city here to join for NYC half as well. So we certainly plan to have festivities around those weekends. So I'll do a post here in the upcoming week just to try to get once again, a roll call of who's going to be there. If you're not running, it's 100% okay. We'd still love to see you, love to have you participate. So even if you're in the area and interested in being part of the weekend, please make sure to throw your name in the ring. So now to our Week 7 workouts here. We're going to start with the winter run group. So run number 1, another interval run, another anaerobic capacity run. So we're continuing with our Strider warm-up. Hopefully this is second nature at this point, starting to feel really, really comfortable. That main set, 5 repeats, 2 minutes at anaerobic capacity. So this is the pinnacle of our training intensity in this workout. This will definitely be the most kind of difficult and strenuous of the challenge. In order to execute this workout the way that you really want to and really excel in this workout, you have to really respect those recoveries. Take that down time to allow yourself to rest up so that you can take it back to that very high level one more time. Don't worry about the pace that you have to be in or listed to be in. What you're trying to do is genuinely recover so you can take it to that high level for the total amount of repeats there. A very important workout to make sure you honor the cool down time as well. You're pushing your body to a very high limit. Take that 10 minutes, maybe even a little bit extra time to really kind of slowly wind down, allow your body to bounce back from that very tough effort that you put forward. Run number 2, our VO2 max run number 2. So this is an expansion of Week 6. We're continuing on working on getting ready for that distance test. So the main set, 3-minute intervals at VO2 max. And then the final set, just a couple minutes, just a little bit faster than VO2 max. Maybe starting to feel what that final push in that test feels like, or that final push at the end of a 5K sort of feels like, where you're really kicking and finishing hard. Also, your paces now are about 6 weeks old. So we start to see and think about seeing progress via adaptation of your body is about 6 to 8 weeks. So some of those paces that you tested into 6 weeks ago, you might certainly be starting to push at the edges of those paces and be a little bit better, be a little bit more confident at running at these zones. So it wouldn't be unexpected if you're able to push some of these things a little bit more than maybe even you realize. So our half marathoners, we're going to start the week, another endurance run, just like this week, but longer distance. It's kind of the midweek long run, if you will, that I like to include in a lot of endurance run plans. Although it falls on a Monday, it's our midweek long runs as opposed to weekend. And then we're going into our progression run, which is the second progression run of this challenge, but a wildly different workout than when we did this before. So the last time was a big range. It was really a zone 2 workout that did certainly get into a little bit of time at zone 3 and even like peaked at zone 4. This upcoming week, it's really a big block of zone 3, kind of start to finish. As written in kind of the moderate plan there, it's a 20-minute continuous block ranging from marathon to half marathon pace. So this is a big, bulky workout. This is an outstanding workout at this part of the training cycle to test your paces, to practice your paces, to really start feeling what holding that pace for an extended period of time feels like. An unpopular opinion amongst many, especially at this time of year, is this an outstanding pace to do, an outstanding workout to take outdoors. Races is going to be outdoors. You're going to have to learn how to hold that pace, how to sustain outdoors. So in kind of moving through these pace ranges that are so applicable to the race that you're training for, is a great opportunity to take it to the road so you can really start to practice holding that pace for a very extended period of time here. Finish the week as always with our longest run, roughly 60 minutes for our winter run challengers, but our half marathoners, you're looking at 9 to 11 miles here in the upcoming week. So we're getting some pretty big mileage. So with that, I'm going to throw out just a couple little reminders here. One is that by this point of your training cycle, we really only have a few more big long runs to come, especially if you're coming into racing here in March. So you absolutely need to be practicing your your race day nutrition. So that not only includes the intra-workout nutrition, so whatever you plan to take while you're running, but not too soon to be practicing kind of that pre-run breakfast, even the pre-run dinner the night before that you plan to have so that you know how your body responds when the time's right. So make sure you're practicing that pre-run and intra-workout nutrition on these training days. 2, race kit. A lot of people keep this pristine, beautiful, kind of high-end race kit tucked away in their drawer until race day, but you have to pull it out. You need to pull it out. You need to try it out in training. You need to see how it responds under different conditions. Make sure in some of these final long runs, you're pulling that race kit out so you really know what it feels like, especially when the distance gets long. Something feels very different 3 or 4 miles in than 10 miles into your run. Seams seem to reveal themselves. Kind of the third little tip here is really make sure on these workouts you're controlling your pace. Kind of to the same point I mentioned with the VO2 max workouts and these paces being 6 weeks old. Your paces are 6 weeks old. You've been training very hard. It's quite possible you're starting to really feel good. You're getting a little bit more efficient, etc. And so you might want to push that pace. So a lot of times to do it, and we're going to get to some of that here in a minute, typically the long run is the wrong time to push the pace. That you want to make sure you maintain a nice, even, steady effort. Don't want to overdo it there. Don't want to waste your good race on a training run. So maybe should have gone with housekeeping, but here we are. So some of you might remember our kind of weekly photo contests. I'm going to bring it back semi-impromptu on a weekly basis here, but we're going to start this week. So our week 7 challenge is going to be the I signed up for this photo challenge. So across the board, both challenges, everybody's going to be putting in very hard work this week. So I thought it was a good opportunity to kind of give away a few things and also have a little bit of fun with it. Most importantly, a reminder that 1, we all signed up for this. That's why we're here in the first place. So whether you signed up for the half marathon or you committed to doing 8 weeks, we're going into week 7 of 8 or 7 of 10. You're practically there. So amazing job already. 2, it's supposed to be fun. So at some points of this process, when you get this deep in, it can start to feel fairly daunting, but it wants to be fun. So remember, we all signed up for this. We're here to have fun together. Certainly here to do hard work, but fun. So as the photo contests were before, please share a photo and or post and our story and our video or whatever you come up with, illustrating why you signed up for this, how you're still putting in the hard work. I'll let you interpret that. We'll pick our favorite and send some swag your way. So make sure to tag @Team Wilpers, @Team Wilpers Running, and #Team Wilpers Run to participate. just FYI, you don't have to remember all this. I'll throw it up as a post as well, either tonight or tomorrow, and we'll hopefully have a little fun here in week 7. So I'm jump into questions that came up this week. So starting with, Diane Roseman DeVito, I'm going to paraphrase some questions together, but these questions were yours. So Diane's looking to PR her 5K at the end of the winter challenge, which means coming in under 25 minutes. Is worried about holding that pace for the entirety of that 25 minutes. Is curious if they should increase the training load, mostly of like the intervals, by adding intervals, decreasing recovery, etc. And then one very interesting note that I'll bring back in a second, mentioned that their VO2 max pace is actually feeling fairly easy. So interesting stuff, lots to unpack. So we'll kind of start at the top. So overall, VO2 max, or let me rephrase, overall 5K pace should be slower than VO2 max, assuming the zones are right. VO2 max at pace you can probably run at physiologically for about 10 minutes at maximum. However, we discovered already together as a group that there's a big caveat there, which is the VO2 max shouldn't feel easy. VO2 max isn't easy. It's a very tough effort, one that you can sustain for as much as 10 minutes if you're very well trained, but that's pretty tough pace. So it complicates the stew, because what we kind of know is that your listed training pace for VO2 max is probably not your physiological VO2 max. But we'll loop back. So it comes to a very real question, which we can manipulate and figure out, which is how do you manipulate the training load? Should you manipulate the training load, etc.? So I feel like this is actually a really interesting opportunity to kind of remind all of us that the 5K is very much an endurance event. It's a fast event, it's a hard event. For a runner like myself that's more of an endurance bug, when we compare it to the half marathon, it certainly seems short, but it's 100% an endurance event. It is run almost entirely aerobically. And so those are the main energy zones we still have to focus on to really attack the 5K. As a matter of fact, a rule of thumb is that the 5K is run at roughly about 97% of VO2 max, physiological VO2 max. Keep in mind. So if we had a lengthy time horizon between now and your 5K, probably a few things I'd want to do. I'd want to say we should probably reevaluate your training paces, because that VO2 max should really feel harder. It should feel like something that's really tough to maintain, even in a 3-minute interval we have coming up here. Should certainly be challenging you. I would also say, to kind of speak to that fear of can you hold the pace a little bit longer, potentially adding more aerobic training time, increasing the duration of a long run, etc., would all be options that I would actually go to before the interval. So assuming that you don't have a long time, which is kind of what the question led to believe, I wouldn't alter too much here in the short term. What I would absolutely consider doing is giving yourself actually a little bit of a pace bump on both the anaerobic capacity intervals and the VO2 max intervals. See if you can't push yourself a little bit more, find something that maybe feels in line with the RPE scale. If I was going to offhand kind of come up with the RPE scale for those, I would say that the anaerobic capacity intervals should probably be about like an 8. They're certainly not like a full out sprint, so they shouldn't be a 9 or 10. RPE scales are a little bit nebulous, but let's say an 8. And then VO2 max, certainly something that's not far off there, maybe high 6 or 7, something that's pushing you awfully hard, something you really don't want to do for a whole lot longer than a few minutes at a time, but know you can for, once again, as much as 10 minutes. So I'd maybe do that adjustment right there. I wouldn't do much of a volume adjust right now with only a few weeks to go. Once again, assuming that it's a short time horizon here. And then what I would absolutely do is make sure to taper yourself really well. And for a 5K, it's really only usually about a week taper, but really pull off, control that week, make sure you get good rest, make sure you go into this 5K really fresh, and then give it a really good, hard, honest effort. In a 5K in particular, all runners, kind of despite of paces, especially if you're going, in that 25-minute ballpark, you're going to be pushing pretty good. You're going to be taking yourself to your limit. So you don't really have an opportunity to warm up in the race per se, which doesn't mean you have to go out all guns blazing. It does mean, however, that at the starting line, you need to be pretty prepared to start at a rapid pace. So warm yourself up as best as possible. Really try to be prepared to start hard, settle in midway, and then naturally, if you can, over the back half of the race, you want to really kick into gear. Certainly the final 3/4 of a mile, half mile, you can really leave it all out there. So it's kind of the fun thing with the 5K is it really allows you to really kick as hard as possible over the final third. Hopefully that helped. Next question here was, is the off season a good time to bump up your long run distance? And the answer I would say is possibly. Just a reminder of our 3 training variables, kind of a good lens to kind of look at this stuff through, is we have volume, we have intensity, and we have frequency. It's really about as much as we have to work with here. And if, as best as possible, you really only want to be manipulating one of those variables at a time. So if you're adding volume, you don't want to be manipulating intensity. It doesn't mean you don't have to have intensity, you just don't want to take it up as well at the same time. So what I would say is, if you're feeling really comfortable with your general level of intensity, it's okay. Yeah, you can start adding volume, absolutely. Just incrementally, a little bit at a time over the weekend, bring your total volume back up. Once that volume gets there and you kind of reestablish a new baseline in volume, the way I like to phrase it with athletes is we're going to now pin volume and we're going to start to turn back up intensity. But as best as possible, once again, really trying to only manipulate one of those things at a time, to try to make sure to put people in a great position to excel, to be able to rest, to be able to recover, and hopefully not get hurt at the same time. That being said, I think in this question, you also mentioned being interested in moving from a 60-minute to a 75-minute long run. That I think you can probably get away with pretty much any time you feel ready. Next question here was, if we find our perceived effort level starts to decrease over a training cycle as our fitness level increases, do we A, stay the course, B, increase the effort, or C, it depends? So great question. I sort of alluded we were going to loop back to this. And these are great topics to be coming up right now because, once again, you've been training for a while. This is a great problem to have, to feel like your paces are almost holding you back when you want to be pushing forward. So there are 2 main ways that I usually go about adjusting training paces for athletes. First one is B races, I guess also kind of A races, races, let's say. That's my favorite way, is to go out and have an athlete run, perform, use that race time to kind of see where they are at that time. That's my favorite. The second way, because it doesn't always work, you can't get races in every region and all times of year, etc., is to incrementally adjust that training pace based upon the success of workouts and training. So it's kind of interesting. As a matter of fact, I thought this was worth mentioning. If an athlete is achieving success at 100% of their workouts, it's actually kind of a problem. It means I'm really not pushing them enough, because they shouldn't be successful every single time out the door. So there's a kind of runner's rule, if you will, called the rule of 2/3. And this was really made popular by Alexi Pappas and her coach back when she was training for the Olympics, which is her coach and ultimately she wanted to be successful 2/3 of the time in her workout. If she was successful 75% of the time, 100% of the time, they knew they weren't pushing her enough. If she was only successful half the time, 1/3 of the time, she was being overstressed. That's too much, too much failure, one, but that was too much training stress being put on her, not productive level. But around that 2/3 mark, 2 out of 3 workouts, 66%, whatever you want to look at it is, that's where they kind of found success, where they were really challenging her. More times than not, she was achieving success, but not every time. There were those times where she just couldn't do it. So if you're at the point of training where every single workout is a success, it probably warrants moving your paces a little bit faster. If you move them a little bit faster and you're achieving those same results, it's always perfect, you might need to go a little bit faster. So that would be a great indicator. If you're really overachieving that like 66 or 2/3 of your workouts, you're almost never missing your pace targets, it's time to ratchet it up a notch. So 2 ways that I would go about doing it. I really like VDOT pace charts. I got picked on the other day by one of my athletes for pulling out my pace charts to see how we should adjust. The other way I go about it is just small manipulations of threshold pace. So our training kind of target guides are based on percentage of threshold pace. So just manipulating your threshold pace about 10 seconds at a time is usually about the biggest jump I like to make, unless it comes warranted in a race. So if I'm doing it manually, I do about a 10-second jump on threshold, and that's what I'd recommend giving a try to. Then I think our final question here is, as someone with asthma, I use Ventolin before running, which always raises my heart rate even at rest. A known side effect of the medication. My concern is whether I should be worried about my heart rate not being within the appropriate zone for an easy pace aerobic run. Should I instead rely on my RPE? So, first of all, I love caveats. I am not qualified to speak to the medical condition nor the medication involved here. However, I still think there is a question here that hopefully will help and help the group at large. So I'm going to rephrase it a little bit slightly to kind of in my own words, unfortunately. So how we'll rephrase it here is just, what would you do if heart rate is a non-reliable way to track your effort, which is kind of what's going on here. Heart rate is going to be no good for you. So when I work with my athletes, I kind of phrase it 2 ways. We have a primary metric, and then there are secondary metrics that I use. And my primary metric when I'm coaching, especially one-on-one with people, is pace. It's almost always pace. Occasionally it's RPE, but almost always pace. I want them doing pace. When they go run a workout, I take a look at the time, I look at the distance, I see what their pace was over that distance. That's the first thing I want to look at. If I need to, and very often I do, then I'll use heart rate as a comparison secondary metric. I'll kind of go in and say, all right, if this is a threshold workout, is heart rate in a line with pace, which is in a line with RPE? And if all that is copacetic, then great. On the flip side, if I had an athlete that keeps overrunning their workouts and they go out for their long run and they keep overrunning their easy pace, then I look at their heart rate range and they spent all of their workout in zone 3, zone 4. Once again, it was a good secondary metric where they said they felt easy. Heart rate is not in alignment with RPE and pace, and so you can make some adjustments based on that. However, when going into a workout in particular, and in this scenario where once again, heart rate is going to be, sounds like it's not a reliable metric. You only have the athlete focus on the primary metric of the workout during the workout. So if the workout is written with pace targets, they're focusing on pace. As a matter of fact, I don't want them cross-referencing heart rate during that workout. Similarly, or kind of on the flip side of that coin, if I have an athlete that's really dialed in and wants to train via heart rate, I don't want them thinking about pace during that workout. I want them only focusing in on heart rate. Once again, in that scenario, we would use the pace as the secondary metric. It's more of an analytical tool than real-world feedback. So in this exact scenario here, once again, heart rate not a really great reliable option. I would start with pace. I would use those pace targets to really go after, and then I would use that RPE on how did it feel? Do you feel like the effort you put forward matched the zone that you were targeting, etc., as an analytical balance, and just kind of leave heart rate for someone else. And naturally, make sure you consult with your doctor and see if there's any guidance you need on that end as well. Well, otherwise, that is it for week 7. I hope everyone has an amazing end of the week here, an incredible week 7. Thanks as always for being here, and I can't wait to see you again next week. Have a great one.